So following the tragic and unfortunate death of Sommie a couple of days back, Arise News said they conducted an investigation into her death and discovered this.
I reached out to our correspondent in Abuja, who detailed the circumstances surrounding her death. She jumped down from her home when she heard about 14 armed robbers came to her home. And she did not die on the spot, Dr. Abati. She went to the hospital and she was rejected. Ferdinand Duohas, the correspondent I reached out, who's done a beautiful report on Sommie as well. He said that, you know, the security guard, which you also mentioned, and alongside Sommie were wheeled. They were not in a stretcher. They were wheeled into the hospital, and they weren't given any treatment because of lack of identification. And by the time the person who had the identification came by to the hospital, Sommie was already taken to the morgue. And I'll tell you the name of that hospital. She was taken to the Maitama General Hospital.
The story you raised about the hospital.
Yes, it's called the Maitama General Hospital.
Maitama General Hospital.
That account was what many of us relied upon, which subsequently made us call out the Maitama General Hospital for what we thought was a gross violation of their oaths and the law that demands that they treat all accident victims. But that so-called investigation from the Arise correspondent turned out to be an outright lie. Watch.
I'd like for you to help us understand the circumstances surrounding Sommie's death. Can you provide more details about the circumstances of the armed robbery that led to Sommie's death? What can you tell us about the preliminary investigations conducted so far? Also, has the command identified any suspects or persons of interest at this stage? Are there any leads being pursued?
To set the record straight, some Udnon, armed robbers specifically, gained access into unique apartments where Sommie lives. A twin three-story 18-flat apartment around the Girishiri end of Katampe under Mabushi divisional area. At this point in time, two guards were on duty, security men. These are private guard. And one of them, who had the courage to challenge, sustained a gunshot. Under this condition, you know the panic that will have resulted from this kind of environment. Sommie actually occupied an apartment on the topmost floor of the building. And out of the fear, she jumped down from that third story, the top floor. The consequences is what we have seen. It's so sad, so unfortunate.
Well, have you seen...
At last, distress call was read to the command control room. Policemen moved to the scene. What they could see, the unconscious body of Sommie on the floor. They picked her there and then and took her to Maitama General Hospital, where the doctor on duty tried as much as possible to see whether they can resuscitate her using the CPR. It's unfortunate. He couldn't make it. And that was the story.
So the question is, where did the Arise correspondent get the load of lies?
I reached out to our correspondent.
He fed his colleagues, and by extension, the whole country. Where did he or she get the story that Sommie was rejected by the hospital staff and that there was a demand for an identification of Sommie before she could be attended to at the hospital? Because those lies were capable of provoking some members of the public or even some of our friends and family member of the late broadcaster to launch an attack against the hospital. I mean, that is how dangerous those lies and misinformation were. Now, I know the Arise family is currently mourning, and they should mourn. But seeing now that they misled the public about the facts of the circumstances that led to our untimely death, I think the right, honorable and professional thing to do is to apologize to the management and staff of the Maitama General Hospital, and indeed their viewers. That can't be too much to ask for, right? Anyways, the conversation moved from the absurd to the ridiculous.
Okay, Commissioner, thank you so much for your good work. It was said that they called the police and the police did not respond on time, also in that instance. So what's the response time on the police? And I'm really excited to hear this, your account, because we have not seen a note bearing the preliminary investigation by the police. We just saw a condolence message. So we want a detailed note so that we even know what we're dealing with, where we are thus far with the investigation, and where we need to go. But they said they called the police. The robbery happened at around from 3 a.m., but the response time of the police was appalling. What's supposed to be the response mechanism by the Nigerian police?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Rufai. See, the situation is this. When we are talking of response time, it's a function of several factors. All right? When was the call made to the police? Where was the location of the police team as at that point in time? What is the proximity? What is the nature of environment we are contending with? Okay? These are the factors that determine what time the police will arrive there. Okay? Take note. These are developing areas with streets that are not numbered. It's happening in so area. You need to place this one on the Google and see how you can navigate to that environment. These are things that determine when the police will get to that location. See, something happening in Mabushi, that area might be closer to Maitama than to Mabushi. But when we are raising concern to Mabushi division division will be moving. It's on the basis of, on proximity rule, so division move to the location. I think as at that point in time, the police got to that place 20 minutes after 3.
All right.
And the deed has been done.
So the question is, are there no police posts or police stations in that area? I believe he said there are. So if there are, what then is the usefulness of these police stations or police posts? Shouldn't they have been able to help the police backup easily locate the area if they themselves couldn't face the armed robbers? Now, I get the argument that many of these places are developing areas, but that cannot be an excuse to jettison timely and effective security intervention. Or did the policemen stationed around this area closed for the night? And the idea that local policemen now need Google Maps to aid their response to emergencies is not only concerning, but very troubling.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
That's a very simple question, and I would like your answer to be brief. How did the police arrive at the conclusion that this is a case of armed robbery? We have had many cases in the past of unresolved murders, assassination, whether it's Mashalari, Funshaw Williams, Bola Ige, Suliata Didiji, and a host of others. And in the past, the police would just say, it's armed robbery. Now, in less than 24 hours, the police will seem to have concluded that this was a case of armed robbery. What if it is not? Why is the police always using the armed robbery script?
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Abati. I got your question. Talking about this particular incident, you see, it's easy because it's obvious. They came in. Sommie was not the only person resident in that apartment. We are talking of 18 flats with 16 fully occupied. All right? So, handsets were picked, some cash from the wallet of individual with the wallet thrown back on the wall. So, it's obvious, on the floor. So, it's obvious that this is a clear case of robbery.
Very intelligent question from Dr. Abati there, but it's a question that the policeman failed miserably to answer. I know the police are now under immense pressure to unravel this case, but I would have thought that to play safe, the police chief should have said something like this. This case has all the trappings of an armed robbery, but investigations are still ongoing, and we will let you know what the final outcome of the investigation is. But to make such categorical statements in an ongoing investigation tells you everything you need to know about how criminal investigations are conducted in Nigeria.
Sommie was not shot. But out of fear, out of panic, it's normal, it's reasonable for anybody. What is the easiest escape route? She jumped down.
It's normal and reasonable for anyone in a situation to jump down from this height. Now, why I am not blaming the poor lady for her action or inaction
Heard about 14
in the circumstances that she found herself, I do not think it's normal and reasonable for a commissioner of police to invariably suggest jumping from this height was the right thing to do. Like I said earlier, this is not a castigation of what the late broadcaster did, but the idea that a police chief would say on national television that jumping from this height is normal and reasonable is, in my opinion, very misguided. And I think he missed an opportunity to educate the public on this matter. I mean, I would have thought that as a security professional, he would have used the occasion to educate members of the public on how best to handle such situations. Because in my opinion, jumping from this height would not be something I would personally consider. But then again, these things are easier said than done. And I understand why some people may consider it as an option. But as far as I'm concerned, a police commissioner should act and think differently.